Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about two habits that I think make playing TTRPGs way more engaging. This is a little bit of a weird one, considering that it isn't specific to Pathfinder 2e, but I've honestly had a lot of fun from these practices, so I cannot recommend them enough. First off, while it might sound boring, taking notes is legitimately useful and I cannot recommend them enough, like I just said. I'm sure that you've been told in the past that notes are good before. Duh. But allow me to reiterate that point. I've always played Pathfinder 2e online with friends, and I always have Foundry up on one monitor and a Google Doc open on the other, so I can help keep track of what's going on. I will gladly admit that my memory is absolute garbage, and taking notes during the session helps me retain a lot more information. Normally I can't remember names to save my life, but if I actually take notes, then I can remember at least some of them, and it also gives me a place to go to look up the ones that I forgot. There's even more value than just helping yourself, though, when it comes to notes. And the real value in my mind comes from summarizing sessions. I've started doing this much more recently than note-taking in general, but it's actually been really useful to write recaps of what happened during given sessions and then posting them for everyone else in the group to have access to. Obviously, going over my notes to write that summary helps me retain more information that happened during the session because, going over whatever shorthand I wrote and then making it actually useful to other people is going to help with retaining information, but it's also just useful for other people. GMs have a lot on their plate already, and having someone in the group organize a summary of every session can be legitimately useful for them, and everyone else in the group, it is also going to be useful for them because not all of them are going to be taking notes themselves. Plus, I've found it to be useful to have a recap of everything that happened in the last session, because it helps people get back in the mood for playing, and that's, triply true if there was a long break between sessions. The other habit that I highly recommend people pick up is really just a post-session ritual for the whole group. Just go around the table and have everyone answer 3 basic questions. What was your favorite thing about the session? What was your least favorite thing about the session? And what was your favorite thing that someone else did this session? They're very simple questions, but asking them right after a session is legitimately informative. Obviously, knowing what people liked about a given session is nice, since it can let the GM know what parts of the game people prefer, or let people just talk about a given piece of RP that was particularly fun, so perhaps the group could go in that direction more in the future. Really, this one is pretty straightforward, but having positive feedback about what works is legitimately helpful whenever you're trying to improve yourself. The question about people's least favorite part about the session has the potential to be a little bit more thorny, but allow me to be clear. In my experience, people will just be complaining about how they rolled bad during a climactic moment, or how they weren't able to finish off a particular creature. Seriously, most of the time, my least favorite part about the sessions that I'm in is just that I'm half asleep by the end of them. But knowing what didn't work for people is just as important, if not more important, than knowing what actually worked for them if you're trying to get better. Really, even if something does come up where someone didn't like a direction that the story took, it's way better to have that be out there and people to talk about it reasonably rather than just pretending that they actually liked it. Communication is good. Finally, asking what people's favorite thing that someone else did is an absolute blast, and it's my favorite, personal part of this little ritual. It gets people thinking back over the session and pointing out the little moments that might have gone under the radar, and it's just tons of fun. Whenever you look back at a session, often you can end up just remembering the big moments, like fights or climactic moments. But pointing out whatever, little or really big or small things that someone else did that was, you liked a lot is really just fun. Pointing out the stuff that your friends are doing that they did well or that you enjoyed is fun because complimenting your friends. is fun. Ultimately, I get that these two habits are just me saying that increasing people's engagement with the game is good. But am I wrong about that? Getting people to think over sessions critically, whether that be by taking notes or asking questions, has always led to sessions getting more enjoyable in my experience. Thanks for watching. I don't know if I'm going to be back on schedule fully just yet, since I've had a rough couple of months, but I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. What sort of things do your groups do to help encourage engagement, or what do you think about my suggestions? Let me know in a comment down below, and while you're down there, you can always consider subscribing or joining the channel as a member. My members provide me with financial support, and it legitimately makes a difference in my life, and I am very, very thankful for them. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.